Good afternoon, everybody. I am here to do our weekly devotional, and today's devotional is going to be about tea. Most of us, when we were little, or if we have children or grandchildren, at one time or another, we have had a tea party. So I want us to look at each letter in the word tea, the T, the E, and the A, and we will talk about how it applies to us as Christians. Each letter in T represents a different step we need to take. T stands for teach. E reminds us to encourage, and A prompts us to adore. Each step is important in ministering to others, but when we start with teaching, it provides a foundation for the rest to build upon. T for teach. It is often hard to think about teaching someone our age or someone older than us. Sometimes we get intimidated. We feel inadequate, but it is a command that is repeated frequently in the Bible. Let's look at Colossians 3:16. There it says, "Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly, as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts." We never know how we will end up teaching somebody, but it doesn't have to be in a Sunday school or through a sermon. When we teach, we are ministering, and ministering comes in many forms. We teach by example, the way we handle ourselves in public, the way we handle ourselves with our friends in the workplace, the way we raise our children, the way we act around others. With this in mind, we also need to be aware of how our actions can teach both the good and the bad. When someone knows you are a Christian, they will definitely be watching and they will see how you handle things. Usually, it's the non-Christians watching the Christians, or the ones they know claim to be Christians, on how they act. They want to watch and see how you handle yourself and handle situations. They want to see if you practice what you preach. Or are you simply trying to discover, or are they simply trying to discover what it is that makes you different? That is why it is important to make Christ your focal point in everything we do. Which leads me to this question. If we were to go on trial, if you were to go on trial, if I was to go on trial for being a Christian, I claim I'm a Christian, so I'm being sent to trial to prove or to show that I am a Christian. Would those who testified against me and for me tell stories that would be enough for jury to convict me? Think about that for a minute. I say I'm a Christian. I'm on trial. Is there enough evidence there to prove I am a Christian, or is there more evidence to prove that I'm not a Christian? This is a powerful question, and only one that you can answer after taking a look at your own life and your actions. Be the light that shines so bright that others can't help but see Christ in you. To do so, start by teaching others about the Lord, living a life for the Lord, and giving all the glory to the Lord. When we do this, we are obeying His commands and doing our duties as children of God. So that is T. T for teach. And teach doesn't have to be, like we said before, a Bible class teacher. We are teaching in all aspects of life. E stands for encourage. As we are teaching, we should also be encouraging. In 1 Thessalonians 5:11, it says, "Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact as you are doing." Everyone goes through trials and tribulations. Even though the package someone presents to the outside world is beautiful and topped with a pretty big bow, does not mean it matches what's going on the inside. The power of a simple act of encouragement can help provide light through a dark time. We often mask our true situation or laugh off our problems because we don't want to be a burden to people. They don't have time for that. They don't want to hear my story. They have enough on their plate. For these exact reasons, encouragement is important. When we encourage others, it helps them to know they are not alone. It helps them to identify someone they might confide in about their true struggles. Encouragement can be shown in so many ways and often doesn't cost a dime. Some simple ways to show encouragement include the following. And we all know these. We've done them for the past 2 months now. You pray for someone, you call someone, you send a text, you drive by and wave, you cook them a meal, you just tell them you're thinking about them, you write them on Facebook, you do whatever. And I would venture to say that every single person watching this video has either been encouraged throughout this pandemic, as people are calling it, or have been encouraged, or you have been the encourager to somebody throughout this. The one that is important to remember while we're encouraging, though, is to be honest. How many times have you been at the grocery store and just out of habit you ask the cashier or someone you see walking down the aisle, hey, how are you doing today? When you really don't care. You really don't, it doesn't matter. You don't care. You're just saying it because what else are you supposed to say? Sometimes that's more hurtful. So I have learned if I really don't want to know how you're doing, I'm probably not going to ask. I'm probably going to avoid the question. If you ask me how I'm doing and I don't want to talk about it, I'm probably going to be like, oh, I'm okay, or it's fine. And if I don't return that, like most people, if you ask me how are you doing, my response is going to be how are you? If I don't want to know how you're doing, I'm not going to ask that. But how many people out of habit and really don't care, but ask, how are you doing? Or better yet, what do you need? Praying, hoping that they don't need anything. I'm just doing that to be nice. I really didn't want to go to the store for you. I really don't have time to run and get your medicine. I really just don't want to deal with your problems right now. But it's the polite thing to do. Don't be like that. Don't be that type of encourager. Don't be polite. Be meaningful. As Christians and women in general, it is important that we spend our time encouraging one another and building each other up instead of tearing down. So much in the world is spent on tearing things down because they don't look the same. They don't act the same. They don't dress the same. So they're wrong and I'm right, right? No. The world will tear down, but when we encourage, we build up and not only show them our love, but the love of God. An example of this would be the next time you see the mom at church, me, struggling to quiet down their toddler, me. Instead of giving them the look, you all know the look, I've gotten the look, offer the child a coloring book and crayons or a small toy. Offer to take them. Offer to come sit with me. Offer to help. Some people, and I mind you, will get offended by that. I understand that. But at least you do the right thing by offering instead of giving the look like, don't you know better? Or making the comment of that child is wild. She doesn't raise them right. She doesn't know what she's doing. Be the encourager, not the tearer down. A crying baby doesn't need to be seen as a distraction, but as a chance to help a mom out and get some baby cuddles in at the same time. And some of you listening are thinking, oh, that never happens. As a preacher's wife, it happens a lot. There are a lot more people saying that cry was a disruption. They got up 10 times. They were loud. They were running up to you versus, I'm so glad that we have a baby in church. I'm so glad to see that mother, even though she's tired, she's worked all night, she got kids ready, she's still at church on time, she's making an effort, she's doing the best she can do, and she could stay at home. We hear a lot more of that, of the first one, than we do the second one. We hear and how discouraging it is as a mother. We were at, you all know, we're at Saucer Creek. On Monday night, I knew I should have stayed home. The kids weren't having it, and it was a terrible night. I spent the night outside. I don't know what Matt preached that night. I didn't hear a word of it. The kids were so disruptive, I took them outside. I needed encouragement, and they gave it to me. The rest of the week was wonderful. Sunday was wonderful. Monday just went their day. So if a parent comes in, offer their help. And if they say no, that's on them. But be the encourager. Try to help them out. And at Fulton, you all do a great job of that. I would not survive without you all helping me with my children. But there are situations, and in other churches, where it is looked down upon. Think of that mother. Be the encourager, not the discourager. There are so many areas in our daily lives that if we stop and look for ways to encourage and help, we'll find them. It's all in how you approach the situation. Plus, when we encourage, we build each other up, and we all feel warmth in our lives. So that's E for encourage. Be a Barnabas. Be an encourager. A is for adore. This leads us to adore. Adore is another word for love, and in John 13:34, we are instructed to love one another. A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. Adore, love, can sometimes be the hardest act to obey. It is easy to love those that are our friends and the people we get along with and our family. We're required to love them. But what about that neighbor that we don't like? What about that person that sits in the pew behind us that we just don't like? Or the person on the other side? What's wrong? Is it easy to love them? Is it easy to walk up to them and shake their hand and say, glad you're here today? Sometimes it's very hard. Leviticus 19:18 says, "Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbors as yourself. I am the Lord." We are instructed to love, adore everyone, not family, not just our church clique, not just our close friends. Love everyone. And before you say I can't, I want to remind you that with God, everything is possible. Will it take some work? Absolutely. Will it take getting over hurt feelings? Absolutely. Will it take pushing some stuff aside? Absolutely. But we can do it. This is not something you will be able to do on your own, but by trusting in God and turning this over to the Lord, He will help us love the unlovable. Loving someone is also a part of showing compassion. When we can love the person who has wronged us or is constantly a thorn in our side, others see God's grace and mercy. They see how different we are. They see our light. They see we are truly a Christian. We are practicing what we preach. When we seek to love everyone in our lives, it often changes the way we see the world. I try to remind myself that I need to look at those around as Jesus sees them. This helps me to remember not to focus on what they might have done, but remember all the things they can do. Think of each person this week and think of them as a cup, and their cup is empty. What kind words, encouraging things you can do? What type of love can you show them to fill up their cup? Pray for them. Simple thing you can do. Nobody has to know you're doing it. You pray for them and they fill up their cup. No one wants to drink a hot cup of mud, but would love to drink a cup of coffee, tea, Coke for me, with our friends. Seek to fill up those around you with love and compassion, and instead of filling their cup up with hatred and discord, I misphrased that. Don't fill up their cup with hatred and discord. Fill it up with love. As women, we often forget our true worth or beauty, and that is why we need to teach, encourage, and adore. That's why we need tea. We have to realize that we are valuable, beautiful, and amazing. It is easy to forget in today's society, it focuses on the external, that God has created us and is working to shape and mold us spiritually and internally. Our spiritual growth will always be more important, and God wants us to follow His rules and His laws. These are not to punish us, but to allow us to grow and be molded into His image. Just as clay finds its purpose and beauty in the hands of the potter, so did we find our true being by letting God mold us and make us according to His plan. In Jeremiah 18, verses 1 through 6, it says, "This is the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Go down to the potter's house, and there I will give you my message." So I went down to the potter's house, and I saw him working at the wheel. But the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands, so the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as it seemed best to him. Then the word of the Lord came to me. He said, "Can I not do with you, Israel, as this potter does, declares the Lord? Like clay in the hand of the potter, so are you in my hand, Israel." So I found a story about a teacup, and I thought it fit perfectly with our TEA, our Teach, Encourage, and Adore. So I'm going to read you. It's called the Teacup Story. There was a couple who used to go to England to shop in the beautiful stores. They both liked antiques and pottery, and especially teacups. This was their 25th wedding anniversary. One day in this beautiful shop, they saw a beautiful teacup. They said, "May we see that? We've never seen one quite so beautiful." As the lady handed it to them, suddenly the teacup spoke. "You don't understand," it said. "I haven't always been a teacup. There was a time when I was red and I was clay. My master took me and rolled me and patted me over and over, and I yelled out, 'Let me alone!' But he smiled, 'Not yet.' Then I was placed on a spinning wheel," the teacup said, "and suddenly I was spun around and around and around. 'Stop it! I'm getting dizzy,' I screamed. But the master only nodded and said, 'Not yet.' Then he put me in the oven. I never felt such heat. I wondered why he wanted to burn me, and I yelled and knocked at the door. I could see him through the opening, and I could read his lips, and he shook his head. 'Not yet.' Finally, the door opened. He put me on the shelf, and I began to cool. 'There, that's better,' I said, and he brushed and painted me all over. The fumes were horrible. I thought I would gag. 'Stop it, stop it,' I cried. He only nodded. 'Not yet.' Then suddenly it put me back in the oven, not like the first one. This was twice as hot, and I knew I would suffocate. I begged, I pleaded, I screamed, I cried. All the time I could see him through the opening, nodding his head, saying, "Not yet." Then I knew there wasn't any hope. I would never make it. I was ready to give up. But the door opened and he took me out and placed me on the shelf. 1 hour later, he handed me a mirror and I couldn't believe it was me. It's beautiful. I'm beautiful. I want you to remember then, he said, I know it hurts to be rolled and patted, but if I had left you alone, you would have dried up. I know it made you dizzy to spin around on the wheel, but if I had stopped, you would have crumbled. I knew it hurt and was hot and disagreeable in the oven, but if I hadn't put you in there, you would have cracked. I know the fumes were bad when I brushed and painted you all over, but if I hadn't done that, you never would have hardened. You would not have had any color in your life. And if I hadn't put you back in that second oven, you wouldn't survive very long because the hardness would not have held. Now you are a finished product. You are what I had in mind when I first began with you. Arthur Unknown. As you go about your daily walk, remember to be sure you're teaching others about God, encouraging everyone because you do not know their journey, and adore everyone with God's love. When we work to build up others and according to God's plan, we are allowing Him to build us up and create a masterpiece fit for the King. Thank you for the attention. I hope you all are having a great Sunday, and just remember your tea time. See you next week.